Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to my kitchen. In today's What's for Dinner video, I'll be sharing with you what meals we had this past week. Our dinners were easy to make, budget friendly, and delicious. So if you're looking for some weeknight meal ideas for your family, just keep watching. First up, I made what I just call a snacky dinner. It's basically just appetizers that we have for dinner. I'm going to start out by making a new recipe for basically like a layered taco dip. This is from the Country Cook. I'll have the recipe linked in the description box below. Now, I did have the recipe, by the way. So we're going to start out with a can of this Fritos bean dip, and I'm going to add in some taco seasoning. The recipe said that that was optional, but it does give it a little more flavor. So I'm just mixing the taco seasoning with that bean dip, and then I'm going to spread that out into the bottom of a pie plate. Next, I'm going to add a layer of guacamole. Of course, you can make your own. Just to make this easy, I'm using store-bought. But again, you can use your favorite recipe. I'm going to add the guacamole and spread that out into an even layer, or as even as you can get it. Don't stress about it. Next up, and this is where this recipe is different from other taco dips I've seen, she uses the Marzetti ranch dip. If you've never tried that as a vegetable dip, it's really yummy. You could also do the Marzetti Southwest ranch dip. I think I'm going to try that next. So once I've spreaded that ranch dip out into a single layer, we're going to add a layer of shredded cheese. I'm using cheddar. You can use whatever you prefer. Next, we're going to add, I think her recipe called for just chopped tomatoes, but I had this pico de gallo on hand, so I'm going to use that up. There was quite a bit of liquid in this, so I drained that liquid off and then just spread out the pico over the other layers. Next, I'm going to add some chopped green onions. Last but not least, we're going to add some sliced black olives. I am not an olive fan, so I'm only adding them to half of it. So you can eat this right away. I covered it with plastic wrap and popped it into the refrigerator for a couple hours. You can serve this with crackers, pita chips, vegetables. I am doing just good old tortilla chips. Next up, I'm making ham and Swiss sliders. I've shared this several times before on my channel, and I'm sure most of you have already probably seen this recipe, but I wanted to share it just in case you haven't seen it. It is one of our family favorites. It's perfect for the upcoming, game days, tailgating, family movie night, or just really any occasion. These are delicious. So I started out with some Hawaiian rolls. You can use slider buns if you prefer that. I know not everyone loves the Hawaiian rolls. I've split those. I'm going to add some sliced Swiss cheese to the bottom, and then I'm going to add some, I like to use honey ham, but you could use whatever kind of ham you like. And if you don't want to use ham, you could use turkey. Really, any lunch meat in this will work. I'm going to follow that by some more sliced Swiss cheese, and same thing, just like with the ham, you can use whatever kind of cheese you like. I like the ham and Swiss combo, but play around with it. So next we're going to add a butter layer. Now this is what I like to add, and I've made this so many times. I don't follow a recipe. I just eyeball the amounts, but I will find a recipe and link it down in the description box below for you. I've got some butter, Dijon mustard, Worcestershire sauce, onion powder, and poppy seeds. Now, I've seen some recipes where people add some brown sugar into this mixture. You absolutely can. I don't feel like it needs it between the honey ham and the Hawaiian rolls, but hey, if you want to add some brown sugar, add it. So all I've done is combined everything into a little sauce pot until the butter melted. I'm going to brush or kind of really pour that mixture over the rolls and then cover this with foil. The foil allows the rolls to steam so that the cheese melts and the ham gets warm. We're going to pop this into a preheated 350-degree oven and bake it covered for about 10 to 15 minutes. We're going to remove the foil and cook it for another 10 minutes or so, again, just until that cheese is melted and the ham is warmed through. I also made some barbecue pepper jelly meatballs to go along with dinner. I will be sharing how I make this in an upcoming video that will be out later today, so keep an eye out for that if you'd like to see how I made it. All right, so here are the plates. We've got some of the sliders, the dip, the meatballs, and this was a yummy dinner. I've mentioned this before, but I love snacky dinners, especially like just sitting and watching a movie and snacking on them. And I love it too because with it just being the two of us and even having the recipe, a lot of times we have leftovers that we can eat on for lunch, and snacks for the next few days. So that's what we did this time, and everything was delicious. For dinner the next night, I made pulled pork sandwiches. I've shared this several times before on my channel. I'll link one of those videos down in the description box below for you. This way that I do pulled pork is how my dad makes it. It's super easy and it is delicious. Only a couple of ingredients. So again, check out that video below. And then to go along with that tonight, we've got this Kinder's mild barbecue sauce. This was our first time trying the Kinder's barbecue sauce. We really liked this. And then we've got some of the Famous Dave's sweet and spicy pickles. And then I've just got some cheapy hamburger buns. This was off the meal plan. I was actually going to make, I think, salsa verde tacos, but when I went to make it this night, it just didn't sound good. I wanted pulled pork, so I ran up to the dollar store and grabbed some buns. And with this being kind of an impromptu off-the-meal plan dinner, I was thinking of a side dish I wanted to make, and I had many different bits and pieces of cheese that needed to be used up, so I thought, hey, I'll make a homemade macaroni and cheese, use that up. So here I've got just a few cubes of this Cracker Barrel extra sharp yellow cubed cheese. In this little baggie here, I've got some, this is just some sliced provolone cheese that I kind of chopped up into small pieces. This is some Gouda cheese. It's about a half a block. And then I have some of the sliced Colby Monterey Jack cheese. So like I said, you can use whatever cheeses you like. I'm just using what I've got on hand to use up. So in this skillet here, I've got it on about medium heat. I'm going to add in some butter and allow that to melt. Now I kind of loosely followed a recipe for this. I'll put it in the description box below, but I added my own little tweaks to it. Once that butter is melted, I'm going to add in some flour, whisk that, and you want to cook that for a minute or two until it starts to get a little brown. And basically what you're doing is cooking out the flour taste of that so that you don't taste flour in your finished product. So next, I'm going to add the liquid. Normally, I do milk. You could also do half and half or heavy cream. The recipe that I saw for this used evaporated milk, so I wanted to give that a try. I'm going to whisk in that evaporated milk and cook that for just a couple minutes. It doesn't take very long until the mixture starts to get thick. I decided to add in some cream cheese. I didn't add a lot at all, maybe just a couple ounces or so. One, I had this on hand and I wanted to use it up, but two, I've made a recipe for a barbecue macaroni and cheese before. I've shared that on my channel. I'll link it down below. That recipe called for cream cheese, so I thought I would add it here. Now, this was a little on the thick side for me, so I also added in just a little splash of just regular milk. I didn't have any more canned evaporated milk. Now, for the seasonings, to be honest with you, until this year, I really only ever seasoned my macaroni and cheese with salt and pepper, but I recently started adding other seasonings, and it is so delicious. It adds such great flavor. You can use whatever you'd like, but I am going to add some garlic powder, some ground mustard, and smoked paprika, and I just eyeballed it and seasoned it to taste. Once I've whisked those seasonings in, it is time to add in the cheese. And at this point, when you're adding the cheese in, you want to make sure that you turn it to low, or you could even turn it off. To be honest, there's enough carryover heat. But you don't want to scorch your cheese. And yes, I realize for the amount of macaroni and cheese I'm making, this is a lot of cheese, but I wanted to use it up. And so we're just making an extra cheesy macaroni and cheese. Once that cheese is melted, you're basically done with your cheese sauce. It's time to add in the pasta. Really, you could do whatever shape of pasta you want. I cooked up some elbow macaroni in, you know what? I didn't just add salted water this time. I've seen other people making macaroni and cheese where they cooked the noodles in chicken stock. So I added just a couple teaspoons of chicken bouillon powder to the water just to give that a try. I don't really know that it made that big of a difference. I mean, the macaroni and cheese was delicious. But yeah, I just wanted to give that a try. This is the finished macaroni and cheese, y'all. This was like the creamiest, dreamiest macaroni and cheese I've ever had. This had such great flavor. Now, I'm just making a stovetop at this point. You could put this in a greased casserole dish, bake it in the oven, but I just wanted to keep it a stovetop macaroni and cheese. Here are the plates. We have some of that delicious macaroni and cheese, some of the Famous Dave's pickles. I wanted my pickles on the side. I wasn't sure if Gary would want his on his sandwich or not, so I put it on the side, but he ended up adding it to his sandwich. And then for the sandwiches, so normally when I have pulled pork sandwiches, I feel like the bottom bun can get a little soggy, so I toasted the buns. I just toasted the insides of the buns, though. I wanted the outsides of the buns to still be like really soft. And we added some of that Kinder's barbecue sauce, and y'all, Like, I cannot even begin to explain to you how delicious this dinner was. That pulled pork was so, so good. And like I said, the macaroni and cheese was super yummy. And those pickles, if you've never had them before, they're really good. They are a little spicy, but just like barely. I don't find them hot at all, but they're yummy. For dinner the next night, I didn't get a picture, but we just had leftovers from the pulled pork. Gary just warmed up the pulled pork, had it on a bun with some of the macaroni and cheese on the side. I warmed up some of the macaroni and cheese and then added some warmed up pulled pork on top of the macaroni and cheese and did a barbecue drizzle. And a quick tip, anytime you heat up something that has like a cheese sauce, so macaroni and cheese, Alfredo, if you've noticed a lot of times when you heat it up, it can separate, especially in the microwave. So if you're going to warm this up, I suggest doing it either on top of the stove on like medium low or in the microwave, but add a splash of milk to it and that'll really help it to not separate and it'll still be creamy. But the leftovers were for dinner this night and they were delicious and I didn't have to really cook anything, just warm some stuff up. For dinner the next night, I'm making Parmesan ranch chicken. Now, I've been making this for years. It's one of our favorites. It's from the plain chicken. I think I've shared it before on my channel, but it's been a while, so I wanted to share it again. Of course, the recipe will be linked down below. So we need some chicken breasts. I would suggest using thin sliced chicken. You can, of course, cut the chicken breast in half yourself. I found some of the thin sliced chicken on sale at Kroger a couple weeks or so ago. So I'm going to use that. And then for the ranch dressing, use whatever ranch you prefer. Kroger or Walmart, I can't remember which one, I think it was Walmart, subbed this Marzetti ranch dressing for something else. And so I'm going to use that just because I've got it on hand and I need to use it up. I don't love this ranch dressing, so I'm just going to use it in this application and use it up. Now, at this point, you can choose to marinate the chicken or not to marinate it. I've done it both ways. Turns out delicious both ways. Just depends on how much time you've got. If you've got time, you can combine the chicken with the ranch dressing in a Ziploc bag, pop it into the refrigerator for a few hours or even overnight. If you don't have time or you forget, no worries. You don't have to worry about it. You can just take the chicken breast and dip it directly into the ranch and then into the breadcrumb seasoning. I've got the oven preheating to 425 degrees. In this little bowl, I'm going to mix up the breadcrumb mixture. So we're going to start out by adding some panko breadcrumbs. And I didn't have quite enough in this jar, so I ended up pulling out another jar from the pantry. Next, we're going to add in some grated Parmesan cheese. I just use the stuff in the can, but I mean, I guess you could grate your own fresh if you wanted to. Next, we're going to add in the seasoning. So we're going to add some garlic powder and Lowry's seasoned salt. Now, I feel like maybe the recipe has been updated since the last time I made it. Maybe not. I could be crazy. But I didn't feel like this was too salty, but it was kind of right on the line. So if you're sensitive to salt, you might want to like cut back on the seasoned salt just a little bit. I added in some pepper and then gave that a really good mix. I started out with the whisk and I figured I'm just going to use my hands. It's the best way to get it incorporated. So here I've got my little dredging station set up. I'm going to take out one of the chicken breasts, put it into the panko mixture, and I like to take a fork and just kind of really press the panko into the ranch dressing to get a really good coating. I'm going to add the coated chicken to a baking sheet that I lined with some parchment paper. And then kind of here's the secret to getting this panko golden brown is you want to add some cooking spray. I'm using some butter flavored. That's just what I've got on hand, but you could also do like the olive oil spritz if you would prefer to do that. We're going to pop this into the preheated oven and bake this for about 20 to 25 minutes until the chicken reaches at least 165 degrees internal temperature. For one of the sides, I'm going to do some quick and easy zucchini. I know I've mentioned this many times before on my channel, but I don't know if I've ever shared me actually making it. It's super simple, and I don't really use a recipe, but I thought I'd share it with you, just in case. So I've got a couple of zucchini here. I like to cut them in half lengthwise, and then I cut them into half and then half again, if that makes sense. But you just want to make little sticks, or I mean, you could just slice these up into coins. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to add some olive oil, and then as far as seasonings go, use whatever seasonings you like. I kind of use different seasonings, every time I make this, just depending on my mood. Tonight, I decided to keep it simple. Did some salt, pepper, garlic powder. Now, you can cook this on top of the stove, pop it in the oven. Tonight, again, going for easy. I popped this into the air fryer at 400 degrees, cooked it for about 4 minutes, gave it a shake, cooked it for another 3 or 4 minutes until the zucchini was tender and slightly golden brown. For the other side, I made some slow cooker creamed corn with bacon. I will be sharing how I made this in an upcoming video, so keep an eye out for that. It should be out later today. Here are the plates. So we've got some of the chicken, the zucchini, and the corn. And this is just personal preference, but we like to dip our chicken, and I like to dip it in honey mustard. I feel like the honey mustard with a little bit of sweetness kind of goes with the Parmesan and ranch saltiness. And Gary likes to do a barbecue sauce, and this was a delicious dinner. Dinner the next night was off of meal plan. I did not feel like cooking this day. I was having a really hard time with my anxiety. And then on top of that, we'd had like a weather change. And so my fall allergies and sinuses were acting up. It came time for dinner and I was like, Gary, I'm just kind of not in the mood to do a lot. And he had mentioned that he really wanted some ramen. And so y'all, just keeping it real, we had ramen noodles. That's it. Just cooked up some chicken noodles according to the package instructions. And for the packaged ramen, we don't like a lot of broth with ours. It's just personal preference. So I drained off most of the water when I cooked the noodles. And then for Gary's ramen, I added in some frozen vegetables and then a slice of American cheese. He hadn't tried the American cheese in his ramen before, but it was actually pretty good. I tried it and I'd say it wasn't bad. And then he did end up, after taking this picture, he did end up adding some sriracha to it. But that was our dinner, just ramen noodles. The next night, we grabbed dinner out. We went to a local mom and pop place where, y'all, I don't know what they do, but they make the best burgers. They're simple but delicious. So I got their bacon cheeseburger and fries, and then Gary got the double bacon cheeseburger, and he added grilled onions, mushrooms, bacon, all kinds of yumminess. And then he got their onion rings this night, and those onion rings were bomb.com. They were delicious. I tried one, and then luckily he got full because his burger was so big, and he had some leftover onion rings. I didn't eat all my fries, by the way. I was full too, but I was sitting there like munching on some of his leftover onion rings. They were so good. For the last dinner in this week's video, I tried a new recipe for chicken spaghetti. I've tried many different chicken spaghetti recipes over the years. I've shared some on my channel. We really like the Pioneer Woman's version, but this had a couple different twists to this recipe that I wanted to try. So like I said, it'll be linked down below. In this skillet, I'm going to add in a can of Rotel. I'm using the Walmart version. I halved the recipe, and the recipe called for a full can, so I started out by adding half the can. You'll see in a little bit, though, I go in and add the rest of the can. Next, we're going to add a can of cream of blank soup. You can use whatever your preference is. I have a can of cream of chicken and mushroom. It's both soups in one can on hand, so I'm going to add that. Next, I'm adding in some cream cheese, just a couple ounces. And the recipe did not call for this, but I've made other chicken spaghetti recipes that use Velveeta. And I had one of these little pouches on hand that I want to use up, so I'm just going to add that in. And I forgot to mention, but I've got the heat on about medium low. Next, I'm going to add in some evaporated milk. If you don't have evaporated milk or you don't want to use it, I'm sure just regular milk would be fine. I'm going to give that a stir. And then for the seasoning, this recipe called for dry ranch dressing mix, which is one of the reasons I wanted to give it a try. You could use whatever seasonings you prefer. So I added in that dry ranch dressing mix, and there you see me add in the rest of the can of Rotel like I mentioned. And then we're going to add in the chicken. Now this is a rotisserie chicken that I have. I just gave it a rough chop. You could use leftover chicken. You could cook up your own chicken, whatever you want to do. And then I'm going to add just a tiny little handful of shredded cheese to this. Give it a stir. And once that cheese has melted, it's time to add in the pasta. So I've got some cooked spaghetti noodles. Just cook this according to package instructions in some salted water. Drained it really well. This was a little thick, so I added the rest of that evaporated milk can. Gave it a stir, and then we're going to transfer this to a greased casserole dish. And like I said, I halved the recipe. It made a very generous 9x9. We had leftovers for several days. So this is a great and expensive meal to make for your family. I'm going to add some more shredded cheese on hand. Normally for something like this, I would prefer to shred my own cheese, but I have this bag cheese that I really need to use up. So I'm going to place this into the preheated oven, and I forgot to mention, did I say what temperature I had it set at? I don't think I did. It was set at 350 degrees, and you want to bake this for about 20 to 25 minutes until the casserole starts to get a little golden and it's bubbly and that cheese has melted. Now, I did let the finished casserole sit for about 10 minutes before I served it up. Here are the plates. So we've got some of the casserole, and then I did add a little bit of dried parsley flakes just to give it a little color. I made some side salads, and then we had a couple pieces of the New York garlic bread in our freezer that needed to be used up. So I just baked it in the oven while the chicken spaghetti was resting. This meal was not on the meal plan. I kind of did that a few times this week, but like I said, I was struggling with anxiety, and you guys know, sometimes we just have those weeks where we go off and meal plan. But I had the chicken on hand and some things I wanted to use up, and this was a comforting, just yummy dinner. And like I said, we had plenty of leftovers that we had for lunch the next couple days. All right, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this video, maybe got some new dinner ideas to try. If you did like it, hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.